I was draining my pool when Karen screamed like I'd stolen Niagara Falls, then called 911 for a garden hose emergency. HOA Karen called the cops because I drained my own pool, so I installed motion sensor sprinklers. Part 1. The shriek, the hose, and the first warning shot. I was ankle-deep in pool water garden hose in one hand, cold soda in the other when I heard it. That shriek. High-pitched, sharp. The kind of scream that could shatter a wine glass, or at least make your sprinkler system flinch. "Stop draining our pool!" The voice cut through the air like a banshee in yoga pants. I blinked, looked around, behind my 6-foot privacy fence. Somewhere back there lurked Karen. At first I thought she got lost, or maybe heat stroke finally melted whatever brain cells she had left. But then I heard the sound. Dialing, followed by the most unhinged words I've ever heard on a Sunday afternoon. "Yes? 911? I need to report a man destroying community property." And just like that, my lazy day off turned into an unscheduled episode of Karen versus reality. I should have seen this coming. The neighborhood came with a warning label, unofficial but loud. "Keep your fence high and your garden hose locked." I thought it was a joke. It wasn't. Because this Karen? She once tried to implement mandatory lawn watering schedules for curb appeal consistency, and now she had decided that my personal backyard pool was, get this, community-owned. Why? Because you could see the edge of it from the sidewalk. I stared down at my pool. A faded pizza floaty bobbing lazily. A giant blue dolphin that had seen better summers. This wasn't a resort. It was my personal project. My money, my yard, my maintenance, and now apparently my crime scene. She kept yelling from the other side of the fence, calling it property damage, HOA, unauthorized water displacement. I swear she said ecological terrorism at one point. I turned off the hose, leaned against the fence, and sighed. She had no idea what she'd just started. Because that wasn't just Karen being nosy. That was Karen declaring war. Part 2. The fence, the flashback, and the files. She should have read Karen's voice was still echoing in my ears. As I stood there, soaked from the knees down, trying to figure out if I was actually awake. Or trapped in a sitcom written by someone who hates peace. I walked inside. Didn't even dry off. Just left wet footprints straight to my hallway closet. Because if Karen wanted to quote rules at me, I had some reading material for her. I popped open the old binder every homeowner secretly dreads. Deeds, permits, blueprints, and somewhere in the back, tucked between a plumbing receipt and a takeout menu from 2018, was the document. The one I saved the moment I moved in. The actual, official, HOA bylaws. Section 14B, subsection 2. Private outdoor installations, including pools, fountains, and hot tubs, are the sole responsibility and property of the homeowner. Not a shared amenity. Not visible equals communal. No votes, no loopholes, just plain English. I walked back outside with the binder like it was the holy book of common sense. Karen was still pacing behind the fence, still on the phone with 911 like they were her personal hotline. So I raised the binder above the fence line and said calmly, "Hey, Karen, page 72. Enjoy the read." She ignored it, started snapping photos through a gap in the boards, like she was on a wildlife documentary. I half expected her to start narrating in British accent. Here we see the selfish suburban male, draining resources like he owns the place. Lady, I do own the place. Then she screamed something truly unhinged. I used to be on the board. I know the bylaws. That pool is visible from the street. That makes it shared. I nearly pulled a muscle from how hard I blinked. Shared? Because it can be seen? By that logic, every dog in the neighborhood is mine because I can see them poop from my window. That was the moment I realized. This wasn't going to be one of those quick little HOA spats. No. This was going to be war by garden hose, and I was going to win. Part 3. The citation, the soda, and the cops who couldn't stop laughing. I was mid-sip of my now-warm soda when I heard the sirens. Yup, she really did it. Karen had actually called the cops because I was draining my own pool. 2 cruisers rolled up like they were responding to a hostage situation. Neighbors peeked through blinds. Kids paused their bikes mid-ride. Even my cat jumped up on the windowsill like, "Wait, are we being raided?" Karen ran out from behind the fence like she was competing on The Price is Right. "There!" she yelled, pointing at me like I'd just stolen a sacred artifact. "He's destroying community property. That water belongs to the neighborhood." One officer rubbed his temple like he was already regretting his life choices. The other looked at me, soaked sandals, garden hose in hand, soda can still fizzing, and said, "Sir, is this your pool?" I nodded. "Your property?" "Yup. Got the title inside and, if you want, at least 6 witnesses who've seen me skimming leaves out of it every Saturday." Karen burst in, waving a printed flyer. "This pool is visible from the sidewalk. That makes it part of our shared visual harmony. Section 7B." The cop blinked. "Ma'am, you just said visual harmony out loud in a felony tone." She kept going. "He's violating community trust, aesthetic cohesion. It's emotional vandalism." The second officer looked at me, then at her, then back at me. "Okay, just to clarify, you're draining a private pool?" "Yes." "Is it harming anyone?" "No." "Are there bylaws saying you can't?" "Actually, there's one that says I absolutely can." I pulled out the printed copy from earlier and held it up like a mic drop. Karen froze. And for a moment, I swear, the earth stood still. The first officer sighed. "We're not issuing any citations, but, maybe consider planting a few taller hedges." He nodded once, gave Karen a look that said, "Please stop making us come here." And both officers drove off, probably to tell the entire precinct about the lady who tried to 911 someone over a pool. Karen stood there, seething. "You haven't heard the last of this," she hissed. I took another slow sip of my soda. And yet, I'm already bored. Part 4. The flyer, the flamingo, and the fake violation war. I thought that would be the end of it. A normal person would have felt embarrassed after calling the cops on a private pool. But Karen? Karen doubled down. That evening, as I walked out to check the mail, there it was, a flyer, taped to my mailbox in Comic Sans font, titled, "Pool Vandalism in Our Midst, Emergency HOA Meeting Proposed." Right beneath that, a blurry photo of me holding the hose, taken through a bush, with a giant red circle drawn around my head, and the words, "Pool Criminal," scribbled in Sharpie. I stared at it for a second, then turned slowly, like maybe I'd hallucinated. Nope. Every mailbox on the block had one. Karen had gone full propaganda mode, overnight, and she wasn't stopping there. By morning, my neighbors were giving me side eyes during their dog walks. The Johnsons didn't wave. Even sweet old Mr. Grady clutched his poodle like I might steal its drinking water. Then, a second wave hit. The HOA newsletter, printed in full color, delivered to every doorstep, with a full-page spread, a cartoon pool being sucked into a drain. Above it, bold red text, Is your neighbor destroying our shared oasis? I almost laughed. Almost. Until I realized Karen had declared war, and she was winning hearts, one lemon bar and clipboard at a time. That afternoon, there was a knock at my door. Not Karen, but her newest minion, a guy named Brent, mid-30s, awkward grin, and wearing a plastic badge that said HOA Volunteer. He was holding a clipboard, of course. "Hey," he chirped, "just doing a quick check-in. You know, a friendly neighborhood water audit." I crossed my arms. "You're doing what now?" He cleared his throat. "Well, Karen mentioned something about chlorine runoff, soil erosion, maybe destabilize flower beds." I just stared. "You think my pool water is causing erosion?" He flipped through his clipboard like he was looking for logic. "She said, if it drains the wrong way, it could destabilize petunias." I pointed to the backyard. "Go ahead, Brent. Check it out. The runoff goes exactly where it should. My soil's more balanced than her mental health." He hesitated, then stepped back. "Okay, cool. Just doing my duty." Then he turned and walked straight to Karen's porch, where she was waiting, holding a plate of lemon bars. She was bribing her army with baked goods, and I knew right then. This wasn't just HOA drama anymore. This was suburban psychological warfare, and I was done playing defense. Part 5, the salt, the citation, and the sprinkler declaration. I woke up the next morning, stepped onto my porch with a coffee in one hand, and nearly tripped over a bag of pool salt. It wasn't mine. Attached to it was a note, written in glitter pen, that read, "For your next selfish act, the community is watching." I blinked, then sighed, because I knew exactly who it came from, and I knew Karen wasn't done. Later that afternoon, I caught her, in my yard. Again. This time, she was perched on a step ladder, holding a measuring tape, trying to prove my pool was visible from the sidewalk. She didn't even flinch when I walked up. According to her, if a private feature is visible from public space, it becomes part of the neighborhood aesthetic. Therefore, it's shared. "Karen," I said calmly, "that's not a rule. That's a hallucination." She didn't even blink. "It's in Clause 7B, she muttered. "What clause? The one you wrote on your typewriter in 1993? She scribbled something in a notebook and stormed off like she'd just collected courtroom evidence. I watched her go. And then my phone buzzed. A notification from the HOA app. I had been issued a Level 2 citation for unauthorized water displacement and failure to uphold community unity. I stared at the screen for a full 10 seconds. Then I drove straight to Mara's house, our real HOA president. She opened the door with a look that said, "Don't even say it." I held up my phone. "She's creating fake violations now?" Mara groaned. "She tried to fine the Kowalskis for having asymmetrical shrubs last week. She's completely lost it." I handed her a folder. Inside, photos, screenshots, footage of Karen pacing my yard at 2 a.m. with a flashlight and a notepad. Mara flipped through it all and muttered, "I'm this close to revoking her reporting privileges." But even that wasn't enough for me anymore. I didn't want Karen silenced. I wanted her exposed. So that night, I got to work. Motion sensors, floodlights, sprinklers calibrated to activate the second someone stepped inside the fence. And the pièce de résistance? A speaker, linked to a custom audio file of Karen's own voice. Pulled from past HOA meetings and my backyard camera footage. "I used to be on the board. This is community property. You'll regret this." It was glorious, and I called it Operation Sprinkler Justice. Part 6, the flashlight, the floodlights, and the Karen ambush. It started with a soft click, then the unmistakable whir of my motion sensors kicking in. I was upstairs, brushing my teeth, when the monitor lit up. There she was, Karen, back in my yard at 2:17 a.m. Wearing a trench coat like she was auditioning for a budget spy movie, a duffel bag in one hand, and in the other, a garden hose. I leaned in closer to the screen. She tiptoed across the patio like a chlorine-obsessed ninja, opened the gate to the pool area, then, like it was some sacred ritual, started spraying water directly into the empty pool, muttering to herself, "Restoring community value, restoring community value." And that's when it happened. The lights kicked on, blindingly bright, flooding the entire yard like a spaceship had just landed. Karen screamed, jumped back, dropped the hose, and then, boom, sprinklers. They activated in perfect formation, cold water blasting from all angles, soaking her trench coat in seconds. She shrieked again, stumbled toward the gate. And then, the audio began. Her own voice, loud, booming, looping from every corner of the yard. "This is community property. You'll regret this. I used to be on the board." She flailed like she was being chased by ghosts, tripped over a flower pot, and face-planted right into my hydrangeas. I sipped my tea, smiling. She scrambled to her feet, sputtering, drenched, furious, and sprinted out the gate like a soggy raccoon. I watched her vanish down the street, sopping wet, hair plastered to her face, still muttering something about bylaws and shared vision. The next morning, I clipped the footage, sent it straight to Mara. Subject line, "Karen's unauthorized pool reclamation mission." Exhibit A. Her reply? Just 3 words. "It's happening, finally." Part 7. The evidence, the emails, and the reckoning by sunrise. I had everything I needed. Every clip, every screenshot, every ridiculous thing she'd done. Time-stamped, high-res, backed up in triplicate. I wasn't just fighting back anymore. I was going full documentary mode. The first thing I did, sent an email to the entire HOA board. Subject line, "Karen's greatest hits," featuring hose, hysteria, and trespassing. I attached the footage, added a summary of all incidents, and included her fake flyers, her staged pool party photos, and her midnight sprinkler baptism. Then I sent a separate copy to Mara, our actual HOA president, not just to inform her, but to let her know this wasn't just a petty neighbor dispute anymore. It was a pattern, it was a problem, and it needed a solution. I didn't have to wait long. By that afternoon, Mara replied with 5 glorious words. "Emergency meeting. This Saturday. Come." I could have cried. But that wasn't the end. Later that evening, I opened my door to find a manila envelope on my porch. Inside, a handwritten letter from Mrs. Green, the sweet old lady 3 houses down. She wrote, "Thank you for standing up. Karen once reported me for floral disobedience because I planted tulips instead of HOA-approved roses. You're not alone. We're with you." 1 hour later, I received a knock. Mr. Grady, cane in hand, chuckled and handed me a USB stick. "Camera footage," he said with a wink. "Caught her measuring my mailbox last week. She said it was too imposing. Whatever that means." I swear, I almost hugged him. And just like that, one neighbor after another began stepping forward. Turns out, Karen had been tormenting the entire block for years. Fake fines, backyard photos, passive-aggressive notes taped to flower pots. And now, her reign of HOA terror was about to meet its day of reckoning. I sat at my computer that night, a playlist of jazz in the background, sipping the same soda she once tried to accuse me of chlorine sabotage with, And I smiled, because this Saturday, it wasn't just a meeting, it was Judgment Day. Part 8, the meeting, the mic, and the meltdown. Saturday arrived, and the vibe, electric. Normally, HOA meetings were boring enough to make paint peel, but this one, standing room only. People brought snacks, lawn chairs. One guy even wore a referee shirt. I walked in with my USB drive and a quiet little smile. Mara gave me a nod. Mrs. Green waved. Mr. Grady? He saluted with his cane. Then, she walked in. Karen. Clipboard clutched to her chest like a holy relic. Hair teased higher than her delusions. And an expression that screamed, "I own this room." She didn't sit. She marched straight to the front and said loudly, "Before we begin, I have prepared a motion to censure the homeowner responsible for last week's water vandalism." You could hear the eye rolls from the back row. Mara raised a hand calmly. "Karen, sit down." Karen froze. "Excuse me?" "You're not running this meeting," Mara said. "And you're not on the board." Karen blinked. "But I'm the—" "You're not anything," Mara cut in. "And tonight, we're here because of you." She clicked the remote. The projector flared to life. And up on the screen, security footage crystal clear. Karen, at 2:41 a.m., creeping through my yard with a garden hose like she was on a tactical mission for neighborhood unity. Gasps rippled through the room. Someone whispered, "Is that a trench coat?" Another muttered, "She brought chemicals." Karen's mouth dropped open. That's taken out of context." "Great," Mara said. "We've got more." She clicked again. Footage of the fake pool inspector. The HOA flyers. The glitter binder labeled Karen's corrected copy. By the end of it, even Cal, Karen's cousin, was sliding his chair away like he didn't want to be implicated. Karen stood frozen, face pale, voice small. "I was trying to protect the community," Mara sighed. "Karen, you turned a private backyard into a battleground." She lifted a folder. "In front of me are 15 signed complaints, 3 formal requests for censure, and 1 motion to issue a permanent HOA ban." The room went silent. Then, one neighbor raised a hand. "I vote yes." Another followed. Then another. Hands flew up like popcorn. Even the referee guy blew a whistle and yelled, "Unanimous!" Karen, still standing, no clipboard, no words, just broken. Mara spoke gently. "You're hereby barred from submitting complaints, entering HOA properties without permission, or attending future meetings without board approval." Then she added, almost kindly, "You need a break, Karen." Karen didn't respond. She turned slowly, walked out the door. And for the first time since I moved in, she didn't slam it. I sat there in stunned silence. And for once, so did everyone else. Because that wasn't just a meeting. It was closure. Part 9. The exit, the echo, and the end of an era. The next morning. The neighborhood felt different. The kind of different you don't notice right away, but feel in your shoulders. Lighter. No flyers taped to mailboxes. No fake citations folded under doormats. No sideways glances from dog walkers trained by Karen's propaganda. Instead, Mrs. Green waved with both hands. The Parkers dropped off cookies just because. And Mr. Grady? He actually smiled and said, "Sasadasambao." Finally feels like home again? That afternoon, I heard it. Not yelling, not accusations. Just the rumble of cardboard boxes and the soft creak of a moving truck ramp. Karen Dassett was leaving. I watched from my porch, arms crossed, soda in hand. She barked orders to the movers like a defeated dictator, still wearing her signature sun hat, but without the army. Her cousin Cal was there too, helping, but not talking. And when she caught me watching, she froze. For half a second, Our eyes locked. I expected rage, fire, a final threat. But all I saw there was someone who knew the war was over. She didn't wave, didn't speak, just turned back toward the truck and slammed the door shut behind her. 2 hours later, the for sale sign changed. Sold. That night, Mara stopped by with a bottle of wine and a smirk. "To peace," she said, raising a glass. I clinked mine against hers. "To silence and the death of fake bylaws." She laughed. "You know, I heard she tried to appeal the HOA ban using that mural of yours." "Oh?" I raised an eyebrow. "And?" Mara handed me a letter. Official-looking, stamped, sealed. I opened it, and inside, one sentence. "Homeowner is well within his rights to display private artwork inspired by documented events." There was also a smiley face sticker. I couldn't help it. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped the glass. Karen was gone, for good. And me? I had my pool, my peace, and a neighborhood that finally felt like a community. No more clipboard queen, no more garden hose accusations, no more fake pool inspectors named Carl. Just calm water, clean air, and the gentle hum of my jets cycling every evening. And the mural? Still there, still smiling, still visible, only from one second-story window. That was now empty. Part 10. The exit sign and the mural that said it all. The silence after her departure was almost too loud. No more flyers on my mailbox, no more garden hose battles, no more surprise inspections from self-appointed clipboard carriers, just me, my backyard, and a peace I hadn't known since moving in. But Karen, she left something behind. Not a mess, not a lawsuit, not even one final insult scribbled in Comic Sans. She left behind a reputation. For weeks after her banishment, the neighbors felt like survivors of a strange, chlorinated war. They stopped whispering, started laughing, started living again. Even the HOA actually started functioning like a normal organization. No drama, no dictators, just newsletters that talked about actual issues, like trash pickup and potholes, instead of philosophical essays on communal visual harmony. And as for me, well, I finally finished the restoration, scrubbed the pool walls spotless, repaired the pump, replaced the tiles Karen had cracked when she slipped trying to stage her little midnight refill mission. And on the far wall, facing exactly where her second-story window used to glare down at me every morning, I left one last surprise. A mural. Cartoon Karen in her infamous robe, caught mid-scream, soaked from head to toe, being blasted by my motion-activated sprinkler. Next to her, in big, cheerful bubble letters, "This is what entitlement gets you." Every time I see it, I smile, because it's not just paint. It's a reminder that no matter how loud someone shouts, no matter how many fake bylaws they print, no matter how many lemon bars they bribe neighbors with, the truth always, always floats to the surface. And as I sat beside my crystal-clear pool that evening, cool drink in one hand, silence humming all around me, I realized something. Karen didn't just lose the battle, she lost the narrative. And now, every splash in my pool, every laugh from the neighbors' kids, every dog bark and sprinkler tick was a victory lap. For every sane person who's ever had to deal with a clipboard-wielding tyrant, who thought the HOA was a crown and the neighborhood was her kingdom. Not anymore. Never again. Epilogue. The peace, the pool, and the power of no. Sometimes, war doesn't end with a bang. It ends with silence. No yelling through fences, no surprise citations, no pastel-colored flyers accusing me of community betrayal. Just silence. And I didn't realize how much I missed it. until it finally came back. Neighbors who used to avoid eye contact, now they wave, they stop, they talk. The Johnsons brought over brownies. Even Mr. Grady, the poodle guy, said he was thinking of adding a flamingo statue to his yard. Just because he can now. And me? I refilled my pool. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. And when the water hit the edge, clear, quiet, mine. I sat back, took a long sip of iced tea, and smiled. I'd spent months being labeled a villain, all because I drained a pool I paid for. But in the end, Karen wasn't defeated by rules or regulations or bylaws. She was defeated by something stronger, boundaries, the kind that say, this is mine, this is not yours, and no, you don't get to vote on that. It wasn't about the water. It wasn't even about the pool. It was about the right to say no and mean it. So when people ask what finally ended the chaos, what stopped the flyers, the screaming, the sprinkler-stalking HOA soap opera, I tell them the truth. It was one sentence, 5 simple words, delivered calmly, firmly, with a smile. This is not your property. And just like that, the era of Karen dried up, like soap bubbles in the sun, forever.